experts and the sharpest opinion. There's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Are we seeing more evidence of sort of a Trumpian, conservative, pragmatic type of populism spreading? Of course, there are different iterations of this. Javier Milei in Argentina comes from a particular free market economic tradition, much more so than does, say, Trump. But the real synergy here, if you will, is Western leaders who are throwing off a sclerotic, politicized state. And those who don't, perhaps suffering under the weight of it. For example, the next shoe that could drop, and please, Lord, let it drop, is Justin Trudeau, that grade school drama teacher the Canadians have made their prime minister for the past decade. A very polished, very sharp conservative MP that we've been talking about off and on for quite some time now, Pierre Poilievre, is in the offing. And with where Trudeau and his party stands right now with Canadians, seems like there is it's more likely than not that you're going to see a change there, perhaps a change that Trump can help foment when he assumes office again. Pierre Poilievre talking about the last decade under Trudeau. You thought the last 4 years were bad under Biden. Think about 10 years of it.
I wonder what message you're sending to Canadians, Mr. Poilievre, when you say you're all about axing the tax. You're all about bringing taxes down, making life more affordable. And in the same breath, you say you're not sure you're going to support a tax break for Canadians at a time when they're struggling so badly.
Why are they struggling so badly? It's been 9 years that Trudeau's promised to make them better off. And here we are. You're right. They are struggling so badly. And I think your own words are a condemnation of his track record, with food prices rising 37% faster in Canada than they have in the United States, just as the carbon tax came in. Housing costs doubled. Here we are in Toronto, where you have to earn well over $200,000 to afford a home. That was never the case before Justin Trudeau ran money printing and immigration out of control, before he built up all these bureaucracies that block home building. Clearly, Canadians are struggling. Justin Trudeau is the problem. He's not the solution. What we need is a common sense plan for permanent tax cut.
Keir Starmer, I know he's Labour in the UK, two-tier Keir, but there's immediate buyer's remorse there. It's just the Conservatives had did such a terrible job in power that it made way for Labour to get another bite at the apple, but it's not going well. We saw the news out yesterday that Freedom Party in a provincial election in Austria scored its first provincial victory ever. There does seem to be a little movement against the state and statism and open borders and all of the problems that that approach to organizing a free society have thrown off. I wonder if this is something that we can see take hold in Western Europe, and perhaps Trump, as I said, can be an accelerant. Martin Gurri is a former CIA analyst. He's presently a visiting fellow at the Mercatus Center, George Mason University. He's also the author of The Revolt of the Public and the Crisis of Authority in the New Millennium, exactly what we're talking about. Martin Gurri, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
So am I connecting dots that are not necessarily connected, or is there something afoot that bears resemblance from Austria to Canada to the United States to Argentina and elsewhere?
No, I think there's, without question, there is a tide afoot of change against, sclerotic was a good word, a Western state model that puts people who are very much identical. You can take somebody from the French government and put them in here in Washington, and they would be identical. And they're identically clueless, I would think. And I think there's a very deep resentment of that amongst people who expect this to be a democratic country and elect people from opposition parties and nothing changes. And I think what you're about to see is change here in Washington. I mean, I don't think I'm a swamp creature, right? I'm in Washington, Virginia, but near Washington. I don't think I've seen so much panic since since the British raided in the War of 1812. I mean, they have the dread pirate Trump and his band of about to take over, and there is panic in the streets.
Well, there's panic everywhere. I mean, they had a cry session. My son goes to the University of Iowa, and I was watching the local news, and they were having a cry session and then a candlelight vigil in District 1, the congressional district, which went to a Republican, too, by the way, or they're still counting the votes. But no one is handling this well.
They were having those at the State Department. Darrell Issa wrote a letter to animatronic Tony Blinken about that.
Really?
Which one thing on a college campus, how about at the State Department, just to highlight the panic you're talking about, Martin?
Yeah, well, I mean, that tells you something right there. These are the people who are supposed to be interacting with dictators and somehow conveying our interest to them, and they're crying somewhere, over a political loss. And I think, honestly, that's part of what the revolt is against, is this bizarre, we are so tender, and words cause harm, and you can't argue with me because I'll break down and cry. There's no arguing. And I think all of us were raised to be a little sturdier than that. I think all of us expect our government to be way sturdier than that. And, I think we're going to see it.
You wrote this piece for the Free Press talking about Trump's counter-revolution, and part of it you talk about the media. Some of the data out in terms of what happened to state and local news reporting over the last year is really interesting. A third of all U.S. newspapers that entered 2024 have been shut down. 127 closures in the past year. Of the remaining 5,600 newspapers, this is according to PR Daily, 80% are now weeklies, leaving just over 1,100 daily papers for a nation of 335 million people. Subscription numbers for the top 500 papers fell by 2 million last year. The Washington Post alone lost 250,000. Newsroom staff dropped by 2,000 jobs in the past year, leaving fewer than 100,000 workers in the entire newspaper industry. I mean, we've seen this, of course, seismic change going on technologically with respect to news reporting, but this is more than just about the late technological adoption. This is about content.
Well, it's a combination of things. The newspaper is dying. I recommend a book called Post-Journalism or the Death of the Newspaper by Andre Mir. They're dying. There's no helping that. The Washington Post, my hometown newspaper, is dying, but then there's this added layer of unreality where you would think if you're in an institution that is clearly headed for the exit, that would be your main concern. Survival would be your main concern. And instead, during the election, we had this enormous drama over the fact that Jeff Bezos, the owner, wouldn't endorse Harris, and people were striking poses and leaving or pretending to leave or whatever. And you're thinking, okay, this goes way beyond rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. They're fighting over the best seats in the house, and the house is burning down to the ground. Okay, What is? Yeah.
Are you there?
I'm sorry, we lost you there. You said they were fighting over the best seats in the house, and the house is burning down, and we missed you.
Yep, that was it. That's all I said.
Oh, okay.
Well, what do you make of MSNBC or NBC trying to sell off MSNBC and CNBC?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a cascade effect. These things happen very mysteriously. They will be consciously trying to distance themselves from Comcast from the poison, the toxicity of MSNBC, or it may just be a business decision. The Trump pump doesn't work anymore. My book sold because of Trump, so I can tell you I'm a Trump profiteer, but it's nothing. Nothing like what the New York Times and what happened there. The New York Times had 1 million digital subscribers and struggling when he came along in 2016. By the end of his tenure, the first time around, they had 8 million and they were in the money. He basically kept them afloat by himself for about 4 years. That isn't working anymore for some reason.
You're a former CIA analyst. One of the few agencies where, at least during the last 4 years, there hasn't been very much controversy. I mean, it's more actually sort of dates back to the 4 years under Trump, and then the 2020 election with the 51 and so forth. William Burns is the CIA director, outgoing CIA director. Of course, John Radcliffe is the incoming CIA director. What's your perspective on not only what Radcliffe will inherit and the challenges for the CIA, but as we're talking about perhaps addressing mission creep in particular agencies, and I don't just mean from a bottom line sensitivity, specifically FBI, your perspective on the CIA and what challenges Radcliffe and Trump will have in getting a hold of that agency and the professionals there that are also resistant to Trump.
Well, I mean, again, it's this institutional rot that has set in. I think the people involved are mostly very good, certainly very courageous, but they are stuck in a structure that is rotting away. And it's not just the CIA, it's the intelligence community. And when I was there, which was some time ago now, there were, this is not a secret number, it's well known, there were tens upon tens of thousands of pieces of Finnish intelligence that were published every year. Well, who the heck read that? Well, we read them, but we were working for each other pretty much, right? So I am one who believes that there is a lot that can be cut there, and a lot that needs to be mission focused. And CIA, by the way, I think is probably the most mission focused, maybe CIA and the military, the most mission focused part of the U.S. government. The rest of the government is like fifth wheels and sixth wheels and seventh wheels, just kind of grinding along, and you walk into those offices, and I did when I was working in the government, and you had no idea who was in control. You had no idea what was the purpose of the thing. Again, mostly it was like a gigantic jobs program, or I had a cynical coworker who called the CIA welfare for the middle class.
Wow. Martin Gurri, former CIA analyst, presently a visiting fellow at the Mercatus Center, George Mason University, author of the book, The Revolt of the Public and the Crisis of Authority in the New Millennium. Martin, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It was fun.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Do you just grin and bear it or bite the bullet when it comes to everyday pain? Don't. Try Relief Factor, a drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. It's 100% drug-free, it's developed by doctors. In 3 weeks or less, you'll know whether it works for you like it works for me. Try Relief Factor for yourself. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and save on your first order. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink